Moving Markets podcast. For those of you that may not know, my name is Jeffrey Dunyon. I am the host of the podcast, the owner of Safe Option Strategies. I think most of you know that because this podcast is primarily for our members, but we make it public so that other people can check it out and see what's going on. As we start today, the U.S. stock market is just opening. We are right at the open of the market. Let's take a quick peek and see where we are starting so far this morning. Futures were all pointing to the upside, so it looked like it was going to be a good day. And yesterday, a holiday for the markets, Juneteenth holiday, and the stock market was closed. But all throughout the day, based primarily on news about Israel, Iran, and whether or not the U.S. was going to get more involved or less involved, futures were down the entire day. So here we are officially at the open, and we've got Dow Jones Industrial Average up 155, still climbing a little bit, 156. The S&P 500 is up 26, almost 27 points. That's about 0.5% or close to 0.5%. NASDAQ up 124. About 2/3 of 1%. These numbers, I like the look and the feel of the CNBC website. That's why I usually have this website up. I don't endorse or promote CNBC in the mornings before the market is open, and for about the first hour after it opens, I'm usually flipping my channel on my TV back and forth between CNBC and Fox Business News. But I don't necessarily endorse either one of them. So anyway, I only say that to point out that these are all these during the day when trading is going on. These always have a little bit of a delay on them, sometimes as much as a 2 or 3 minute delay. Sometimes it seems as up to date as maybe 20 or 30 seconds. So bear that in mind. The markets are open and things are changing every second. Like just in the time I've been talking, the NASDAQ has gone from being up 125, 130 points. Well, it dipped down below 100. Now it's back up to 122. So it's kind of bouncing around. That's typical. The markets are primarily up this morning. Nothing has really changed since yesterday as far as the Iran, Israel, U.S. involvement, maybe not involvement, maybe involvement kind of goes back and forth. Nothing has really changed with that. What has changed is that early this morning, one of the Fed govs says that they could be cutting rates as early as July. Now that doesn't necessarily contradict what Jerome Powell said just 2 days ago, but it's not really fully in sync with what Powell said because Powell didn't say that rate cuts could come as early as July. Powell said they're still on track for a couple of rate cuts this year if everything goes well, if everything goes as expected. But then Powell had to throw in there some negative things that are based purely on speculation and zero evidence. I talked enough about that the other day that I'm not gonna get off on that again. But This is primarily this morning, at least, what is driving markets to the upside. Now, it's early in the trading day. We're going into the weekend. There is still a lot of concern that exists out there as it relates to this whole Iran-Israel situation. Israel had some more targeted strikes last night. Iran is most likely going to retaliate in some way, shape, or form today. So nothing, no one's out of the woods on this. Nothing is decided or settled or over and done with. It's still an evolving situation, and it could still get a lot worse before it gets better. I hope that's not the case. I very genuinely hope that it starts to settle and calm. Trump has indicated, one of the headlines I saw just on the regular news today, not on the financial news, although a lot of times they overlap. One of the things I saw on the regular news today is that Trump made some comment about there's very much an open door or a possibility of some negotiations with Iran that could take place to help settle and end this thing, or at least get the lid back on Pandora's box, so to speak. We'll see. I hope that's the case. I hope we don't have to get actively involved with our military. I hope we don't have to even consider or think about possibly sending troops over there. I think that's the opposite of what we want to be doing. But I also am firmly of the belief that we have to do everything that we are capable of doing to keep Iran from reaching its nuclear bomb ambitions. And so I know I'm getting political. I know I'm off on things that may seem non-market related, but this is affecting the market. This is affecting oil prices. It's affecting the way people are trading. It affects whether they stay in some of the traditional growth stocks that they've been in, or whether they're shifting to more defensive stocks. And that can be defensive as in defense stocks like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and companies like that, or defensive positions where they move out of stocks, they move into more cash, they move into gold, maybe they move into crypto. I think crypto is having a big day today. At least it looked that way earlier. I haven't had a recent peek. Yeah, Bitcoin up 1,600 points today. That's a little bit more than it gave up on Wednesday and Tuesday. So, climbing back towards all-time highs on Bitcoin. I think, if I remember right, what was 108 the highest that Bitcoin got? And if we go back about 6 months, there's 108. The high got to 111. So that I'm sorry, I was off a little bit. 111 was the highest Bitcoin got, but it's pushing back in that direction. And if you just look at the last 3 months, it's got a much stronger uptrend. So some people do consider that a defensive position, moving more into crypto and less into some of the traditional stocks that people often like to trade. So that's where we find ourselves on a Friday morning. Right now, the Dow's still up 150 points. I really sincerely hope that it finishes that way and finishes strong to the upside today. If there's any more conversation or any more commentary about rate cuts, if there's anything positive at all as it relates to the Israel-Iran situation, you could see the markets accelerate a little bit, or at least hold on to these gains. But do not be shocked today if before the end of the day, not for any bad reasons, not because something is horribly wrong, although news like that can come at any time. Don't be surprised, though, if the markets just sell off before the end of the day, because we're going into the weekend, and that's not an uncommon thing. It's not out of the ordinary for people to sell some things off going into the weekend for no other reason than to just be kind of neutral, especially when you're talking about day traders and swing traders. Sometimes it's advantageous to just be a little more neutral going into the weekend, and that's not a bad thing. But it oftentimes means that late on a Friday, barring some news that sort of, in a good way, is gas on the fire, because I would say already we've got a little bit of a fire burning. Dow's up almost 200 points now. But barring a little gas on that fire, it's just people sometimes get a little more defensive going into the weekend and want to be in cash in case of any news that breaks over the weekend that might shift things dramatically at the open on a Monday morning. So don't be surprised by that. I'm not hoping for it. Don't believe that'll be the case, but don't be surprised by it. All right, let's end the week by talking a little bit about where we're at. Our portfolio is looking fantastic. We closed Amazon, we closed CoreWeave, we closed Walmart awfully close to a break even. I mean, we were a percent, half. I think we were 0.5%, maybe 1% in the negative. Our CrowdStrike trade is still open. It's down a little bit, but it's a longer term trade. I'm not worried in the least about where we end up with CrowdStrike. Nvidia looking good. They're up a little bit today, not much, but up a little tiny bit. Actually, they're really super flat today, up about 4 cents. And I know they have been negative and they have been positive already today. But Palantir continues a march upward. It's up a little bit more today. Not a huge amount, but up another 0.5%. So it's looking absolutely fantastic. Our spread trades are just in really phenomenal shape right now. We're having a record-breaking year. If we can maintain and add to these gains, it'll be the biggest 1-year profit from a percentage standpoint that we've had on our spread trade portfolio. We're not even halfway through the year, and I think we're at the highest profit we've had. Now, I know a lot of that is on a Palantir trade that was open last year, but even without that Palantir trade, I made a point of stating this earlier this week in a podcast. Even without the Palantir trade, we're up 90% on the calendar year, and I think the highest we've ever had for a full calendar year. Remember, we're barely at the halfway point, not even quite. The biggest return we've ever had in a full calendar year was around 130%. So we're well on pace to blow that out of the water if we can maintain and add to these gains. But with the Palantir trade, if you were fortunate enough to get into that at the end of last year and carry those gains over into this year, we're getting close to 200% now. So it's fantastic. I reviewed every one of our collar trades this morning. I went through every single one of them to see if there was anything that needed to be done going into this weekend. There is not. We're absolutely set for our collar trades. I know it might feel a little bit like I'm behind right now, but I am still looking at adding to the collar trades. I still am of the opinion that we should add a couple of trades to that. As I've been close to pulling the trigger on that, I'm not quite there. And that had to do with how we sold off earlier in the week because of the Iran-Israel stuff and how that was affecting the market. I wanted to wait just a little bit and see what was going on. But we will add some new collar trades very, very soon. And as far as triple play goes, I think a couple of people may not have listened to the podcast earlier in the week. Couple of days ago, before the end of the day on Wednesday, I put out information that we should just get out of the DIA trade. I did not like the way it was trending. I did not like how it was going. I didn't want to string it out and string it along with an adjustment, so I recommended just dumping that one and getting out. I'm saying this because one individual asked this morning, what are we doing with the DIA trade? Where are we at with that? If you are still in DIA, let me show you something you could do to mitigate the loss. I bailed out of this trade several days ago. If you are still in this trade, DIA right now is trading at 423. You should have not a lot, but a little bit of value left in the put side of the trade, although a lot of that disappeared this morning, unfortunately. It looked better yesterday day before yesterday than it did today. There's still a little bit of value in the put side of that, not much. If I were still in this trade, what I would do immediately is roll this 433 short call down to about, you've got a $3 spread right here. I would go $3 in the other direction. I would roll it down to 427. You're not going to get a lot in doing that, but I would keep it in today's expiration. I would roll it straight down to 427. Hopefully you pick up 10, maybe 12 cents. I have to do this on another screen. I don't have time to pull it up on the screen, but on a different computer, I have this up. Let me tell you what would happen if you were to do that right now. If you rolled the let's see, if you bought to close the 433 and you sold to open with today's expiration, you sold to open the 427, you could get about 13 cents a share out of it. I would grab that 13 cents a share. I would get that immediately. On the put side of the trade, it's a little bit tough because the Dow continues to climb. That put side is getting farther and farther out of the money with the DIA right now as we speak. Let's see where it's at. Again, I apologize. I'm doing this on a different screen. Bear with me for a moment. Let's see. The 425, 422. Oh, I'm not getting this to refresh on my other screen. Bear with me. I'm almost there. There we go. The 425, 422. It still has about $1.05, $6, $7 left in it. I would just take that and get out. I know relative to what we got into the trade for, you're getting half of that back. And then you're picking up maybe 10 to 15 cents on the roll that I talked about. I would do those two things ASAP and then just be done with the trade. Let the put side expire worthless today, which is the call side. Let the call side expire worthless today, which is very, very likely to do. I do not think the Dow's going to be up another 300 to 400 points today, and then take what you can get out of the put side right now and just bail out of it. So that's the suggestion for the DIA trade. For those of you that were still in it, I apologize you didn't get word earlier in the week, but you got to listen to these podcasts. Make it a point every single day to check and listen to these podcasts, because I'm always giving updates on what we're doing on that. Okay, last thing for this week, there are some really attractive earnings plays coming up for next week. Micron reports next week. FedEx reports next week. Nike reports next week. These are all companies that have the ability to have pretty strong, pretty big moves on a good or a bad earnings. And I might possibly, before the day is over today, add a new triple play trade, or even recommend for the regular safe option strategy spread trades, maybe getting into something today that would take advantage of some of the extrinsic value bleed off that happens over the weekend. It's not a guarantee. It's not 100%, but it's very possible. So as much as you're able to, check your emails today before the open, watch Discord before the close, or excuse me, before the close of the market, not before the open. Watch your emails before the close, watch Discord before the close. I think it's more likely I send out something for a Monday morning open. But if you can, watch today just in case we decide to do something prior to the close of the market, and I'll try and give as much notice on that as possible. All right, I hope everybody has a great weekend. I'm going to wrap up right there. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, enjoy the weekend, and Monday we'll be back at the close of the market to do a podcast and talk about the new trades we're doing for the week, both on the spread trade, the regular spread trade, the triple play trades, and I'm still close to adding one or two new collar trades. So watch for those. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.